My name is Faith, and I'm 42 years old. Just a few months ago, my life was a whirlwind of international mergers and high-stakes negotiations. I was a CEO, a titan of industry, a woman who commanded respect in every boardroom she entered. My world was defined by concrete jungles and the hum of private jets. I believed I had everything: a penthouse apartment with panoramic city views, a wardrobe filled with designer clothes, and a meticulously curated life. But beneath the polished surface, there was a hollowness I rarely acknowledged. I was perpetually chasing the next deal, the next success, convincing myself that fulfillment lay just beyond the horizon of my current achievements. That illusion shattered the moment the engine sputtered. The plane, my sanctuary of solitude and ambition, began its terrifying descent. In those horrifying seconds, as the world outside blurred into a chaotic symphony of wind and screaming metal, all the accolades, all the wealth, all the power meant nothing. It was just me, plummeting towards an unknown fate. I braced for impact, a single primal thought echoing in my mind. Is this it? Is this how it all ends? The crash wasn't an end, but a violent, earth-shattering beginning. It was the universe's brutal way of stripping everything away, leaving me vulnerable, raw, and utterly dependent. And it was in that desolation that a pure soul, a small, unassuming orphan, found me. He didn't just save my life, he reshaped my entire existence. This isn't just a story about survival. It's a testament to how destiny can arrive in the most unexpected forms, how a shattered life can be rebuilt by the purest of hearts. If you've ever felt lost, adrift, or believed your path was set in stone, stay with me. This is the story of how my plane crashed, but a pure soul found me, and how the orphan who saved me became my destiny. Now I'm his. The world went black, then burst into a kaleidoscope of pain. When I regained consciousness, the smell of burning fuel choked me, and the twisted metal surrounding me was a stark reminder of my violent arrival. My body screamed in protest with every attempt to move. My left leg was pinned, and a searing pain shot through my side. Panic, cold and sharp, threatened to consume me. I was in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by the wreckage of what was once my escape from reality. Hours blurred into an eternity of agonizing stillness. The sun, when it finally broke through the dense canopy of trees, felt like a cruel spotlight on my helplessness. Thirst gnawed at me, and a creeping fear began to settle in. The fear of being utterly alone, of dying in this forgotten corner of the world. Just as despair threatened to overwhelm me, a flicker of movement caught my eye. A small figure emerged from the dense undergrowth, no older than 10, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and curiosity. He wore tattered clothes and carried a stick, almost like a miniature explorer. He was hesitant, ready to bolt at any sudden sound, but something in his innocent gaze held me. He was a beacon in my darkest hour, a tiny spark of humanity in a landscape of ruin. He approached cautiously, his gaze fixed on my broken form. "Are you okay?" he whispered, his voice barely audible above the ringing in my ears. His simple question, so full of genuine concern, was like a balm to my raw nerves. I tried to speak, but only a croak escaped my parched throat. He seemed to understand, his brow furrowed with a seriousness that belied his age. He was a child, yes, but there was an ancient wisdom in his eyes, a resilience forged in hardship. And as he looked at me, a profound connection, as inexplicable as it was immediate, began to form. The boy, whose name I would soon learn was Leo, didn't just stand there. He became my unexpected anchor in the storm of my predicament. His small hands, surprisingly strong, worked to clear debris around my trapped leg. He moved with an efficiency that suggested a life of self-reliance, his movements economical and purposeful. It was clear he was accustomed to navigating challenges alone. Leo became my silent guardian angel in the days that followed. He was a creature of the forest, moving with an almost feral grace. He'd disappear for what felt like hours, only to return with wild berries, roots, and even small fish he'd caught in a nearby stream. He meticulously crushed leaves and applied them to my wounds, a rudimentary but effective first aid. He built a makeshift shelter from branches and leaves, protecting me from the elements. His resourcefulness was astounding, a stark contrast to my own utter helplessness. I, who had once orchestrated global deals, was now utterly dependent on the kindness of a child. We communicated mostly through gestures and hushed whispers, my voice still hoarse from the dust and trauma. He rarely spoke of himself, but his actions spoke volumes. I learned he was an orphan, living alone in a small, crude shack deeper in the woods. He had no family, no one to care for him, yet he possessed a compassion that shamed my own self-absorbed life. There were moments when the pain was so intense, the despair so profound, that I wanted to give up. But then I would look at Leo, his small face etched with concern, his unwavering determination to keep me alive, and I would find a flicker of strength. He would sit beside me for hours, sometimes humming a simple, wordless tune, sometimes just holding my hand. His touch was comforting, a pure, unburdened connection that transcended words. He told me he saw the smoke from the crash and, despite his fear, had come to investigate. "I thought someone might need help," he'd whispered, his eyes earnest. He had no grand expectations, no desire for reward. He simply acted out of an innate goodness, a fundamental human decency that I, in my pursuit of corporate glory, had long forgotten. My body was broken, but my spirit slowly, tentatively, began to heal under his gentle care. He taught me lessons without uttering a single lecture, just by being himself. He showed me the true meaning of resilience, selflessness, and the profound power of human connection, even in the most desolate of circumstances. I was no longer a CEO. I was just Faith, a broken woman being nursed back to life by a boy who had nothing but his pure heart. As days turned into weeks, the initial shock slowly gave way to a new reality. My body was mending, albeit slowly, and with each passing day, Leo's presence became less of a survival necessity and more of a comforting constant. He was no longer just my rescuer. He was becoming something more profound. With each passing day, as my physical wounds slowly began to knit, the emotional ones, those I hadn't even realized existed, began to surface. My corporate life, once a source of immense pride, now felt hollow, a distant echo of a woman I barely recognized. The endless meetings, the power struggles, the relentless pursuit of more. It all seemed so utterly meaningless in the face of the raw, undeniable beauty of the forest and the quiet strength of the boy who had saved me. Leo, meanwhile, continued to be my grounding force. He was a master of his environment. He showed me how to identify edible plants, how to track small game, and how to find fresh water. He taught me about the rhythms of nature, the subtle shifts in light and sound that indicated the changing day. His knowledge, born of necessity and observation, far surpassed anything I had learned in my expensive universities. He had a natural curiosity, too. He would ask me about my life before the crash, his eyes wide with wonder as I described towering skyscrapers and bustling cities. He was fascinated by the concept of airplanes, though a shadow of fear would cross his face when he remembered the wreckage. I found myself opening up to him in ways I never had with anyone else. I spoke of my ambition, my loneliness, the constant pressure to achieve. He listened intently, without judgment, his small hand often resting on my arm in a gesture of silent understanding. There was a moment, one particularly serene evening as the sun dipped below the treeline, painting the sky in fiery hues, when he looked at me and said, "You seem happier now, Faith." His words struck me with the force of a revelation. He was right. Despite the pain, despite the uncertainty of my future, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. I was stripped bare of all my material possessions, my status, my identity, and in that void, I found a lightness, a freedom I had never experienced. We talked for hours that night, about his dreams of seeing the outside world, about my newfound desire for a simpler life. It was then, looking at his trusting eyes, that a powerful realization solidified within me. This boy, this pure soul, wasn't just someone I was indebted to. He was becoming my reason for being. He had saved my life, and in doing so, he had shown me how to truly live. The thought of leaving him, of returning to my old life without him, became unbearable. My destiny wasn't waiting for me back in the city. It was right here, in the heart of this forest, in the innocent gaze of an orphaned boy. The decision, once formed, settled in my heart with a quiet certainty. The old world held no allure, no draw strong enough to pull me away from the profound connection I had forged. The wilderness, once a terrifying unknown, now felt like home, and Leo, my unexpected savior, was its beating heart. The realization that Leo was my destiny was both exhilarating and terrifying. How could I, a woman so accustomed to concrete jungles and corporate battles, truly build a life in the wilderness for him? The practicalities loomed large. But the thought of leaving him, of returning to a life that now felt utterly meaningless without him, was far more daunting. I began to speak more openly about my past life, sharing stories of the world beyond the forest. Leo listened, his eyes wide with a mixture of awe and apprehension. He asked about schools, about other children, about what it was like to live in a house with running water and electricity. His innocence was a constant reminder of how much he had missed, how much I could give him. One afternoon, as we sat by the stream, he suddenly turned to me, his small voice filled with a tremor of fear. "Will you leave, Faith? Like the others?" My heart constricted. He had obviously known loss, abandonment. I pulled him close, holding him tight. "No, Leo," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "I won't leave you. Never." And in that moment, I knew it was the truth. My former life, with all its glitter and perceived success, felt like a distant, irrelevant dream. This being here with him was the only reality that mattered. I started to teach him what I remembered from my limited knowledge of the outside world, the basics of reading and writing, simple arithmetic. He was a quick study, his mind like a sponge, eager to absorb everything. He, in turn, continued to teach me about survival, about the resilience of nature, about finding joy in the smallest things. We were an unlikely pair, a former CEO and an orphan boy, forging a new life amidst the wreckage of my old one. Slowly, painstakingly, we began to repair the shack he called home, making it more livable. We fashioned crude tools, learned to cultivate a small patch of land, and started to envision a future together. It wasn't a life of luxury, but it was a life of purpose, of genuine connection, of a love that transcended all expectations. I had crashed, lost everything, and in doing so, I had found the most profound wealth imaginable. A pure soul who had not only saved me, but had also opened my eyes to a destiny far greater than any corporate empire. He was no longer just the boy I saved. He was the reason I breathed, the very heart of my rediscovered existence. Our little world in the forest, once a place of mere survival, transformed into a sanctuary of shared dreams and quiet contentment. Each sunrise brought new lessons, new laughter, and a deeper understanding of the unspoken promises that bound us. As the seasons turned, our shared life in the forest became a tapestry woven with threads of resilience, love, and discovery. We established a rhythm, a routine that felt both ancient and profoundly new. Mornings were spent gathering food, tending our small garden, or exploring deeper into the woods, Leo always leading the way, his knowledge of the terrain far surpassing mine. Afternoons were for learning. I would teach him from memory, recalling stories, facts, and concepts from my past life, adapting them to his world. He, in turn, would share his understanding of the forest, identifying bird calls, animal tracks, and the medicinal properties of plants. He taught me to truly see the world around me, not just observe it. One day, a small, tattered book, a children's storybook, washed up on the riverbank, a remnant from who knows where. It was a treasure beyond measure. We spent hours poring over its pages, Leo tracing the words with his finger as I read, his eyes alight with wonder. It was a window to a world he had only imagined. His laughter, bright and unrestrained, became the soundtrack to my days. I learned to appreciate the simple joys. The taste of wild berries, the warmth of a fire on a cold night, the silent understanding that passed between us with a mere glance. My hands, once accustomed to keyboards and PowerPoint presentations, now knew the feel of soil, of rough wood, of Leo's small, trusting hand in mine. There were challenges, of course. Storms would rage, resources would be scarce, and the loneliness at times would still creep in. But we faced them together. Our bond, forged in the crucible of my crash, deepened with every shared hardship and every quiet triumph. I found myself thinking less and less about the life I had lost, and more about the life I was building, brick by laborious brick, with Leo. He wasn't just an orphan anymore. He was my son, in every sense that mattered. And I, Faith, the former CEO, was now simply a mother, dedicated to the pure soul who had shown me the truest path to happiness. The world outside our secluded haven sometimes beckoned, sometimes threatened, but within the quiet embrace of the forest, our unique bond continued to flourish. Each day reinforced the profound truth that our paths were inextricably intertwined. Our simple life wasn't without its moments of contemplation about the future. While I cherished our existence, I also knew that Leo deserved more than just survival. He deserved an education, opportunities, a chance to explore the world beyond our forest sanctuary. I started thinking about how we could safely integrate back into society, not as the high-powered executive I once was, but as Faith, a woman who had found her purpose in an unexpected place, with an unexpected companion. I began sketching plans, rough ideas on bark and smooth stones, envisioning a small, self-sustaining life near a village, where Leo could attend school and learn with other children. He listened, his brow furrowed in thought, sometimes with a spark of excitement, sometimes with a quiet apprehension about leaving the only home he had ever truly known. One crisp morning, as we sat by the fire, Leo asked, "Will we always be together, Faith?" His question, so simple and direct, pierced straight to my heart. "Always, Leo," I replied, my voice thick with emotion. "No matter what." He smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that could melt the deepest snow. In that moment, I understood that my journey wasn't just about saving myself, or even about saving Leo. It was about mutual salvation, about two lost souls finding solace and purpose in each other. He had pulled me from the wreckage, literally and figuratively, and in return, I was determined to provide him with a future, a family, a sense of belonging he had never known. The world outside was still a mystery, potentially daunting, but facing it with Leo by my side felt not like a burden, but a privilege. My past, the high-flying corporate life, now seemed like a prologue to this profound, unexpected chapter. My plane had crashed, yes, and I had lost everything conventional. But what I had gained was immeasurable. A pure soul, a destiny woven into the life of an orphan boy, and the profound realization that true wealth lies not in accumulation, but in connection, in love, and in the unwavering promise of always. Today, several years have passed since that fateful crash. We live in a small, rustic home nestled on the outskirts of a charming, close-knit village, a short walk from the very forest that became our sanctuary. Leo, now a bright, curious teenager, thrives in school, his thirst for knowledge insatiable. He's a remarkable young man, carrying the same innate kindness and resilience he showed me on that desolate crash site. He helps out at the local community garden, volunteers at the animal shelter, and often leads hikes through the woods for younger children, sharing his profound connection to nature. I, Faith, no longer wear designer suits or command boardrooms. My hands are calloused, my spirit is lighter, and my heart is full. I teach part-time at the village school, sharing stories of my travels, and I've learned to appreciate the rhythm of a simpler life. Our days are filled with the gentle hum of everyday living. Shared meals, homework sessions, long walks, and the comforting silence of just being together. The central lesson of my story is simple, yet profoundly transformative. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to find what truly matters. My crash wasn't just an accident. It was a divine intervention, a violent redirection that led me to my truest purpose. It taught me that genuine wealth isn't measured in bank accounts or titles, but in the depth of human connection, in selfless love, and in the quiet joy of a shared life. Leo, the pure soul who found me, was indeed my destiny. He wasn't just an orphan I saved. He was the catalyst for my own salvation, the anchor that pulled me back from a life of emptiness and into a world overflowing with meaning. If my story resonates with you, I invite you to consider what you might be holding on to that's preventing you from discovering your own profound connections. What hidden blessings might lie in the unexpected detours of your life? Let go of the need for control, embrace vulnerability, and allow yourself to be open to the unexpected paths destiny may carve for you. My plane crashed, and I lost everything, only to gain a son, a purpose, and a love that redefined my entire existence. I was lost, but a pure soul found me. The orphan who saved me was my destiny. Now and forever, I am his.